Hello, everybody. This is Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist, and welcome to the very first chapter, chapter number 1 of my book, my new V book, Live to 150. And in case you didn't catch the preface or the introduction, basically this book is my experience on how anyone and everyone should be able to live to 150 years young. And that's my last name, Young. So we'll try not to use the word old, because I know that 150 is like twice of what the average life expectancy is these days. But we see people that live 120 years old, and they don't even use half the stuff I'm going to talk to you guys about. So let's get right into the first chapter, and it's about food. Why is it about food, and why is it so general? And do you think is this chapter going to go on for like days? It's not, but food is the number one most important thing, I'd say, because living to 150 years young means that you have to develop some good habits, and no set of habits affects you in a greater way than what you choose to put into your mouth at least 1, 2, 3 times a day, if not more if you're a snacker. That is going to be the biggest thing. So I'm not going to dive into specifics in this chapter, because the many chapters in this V book that are going to be heading forward from this point on, and we're in July, mid-July, I believe it is, 2021. We're in mid-July. We may even learn things. Maybe I may even learn new things about food. Food is the most heavily weighted thing, and there's no pun intended there. You can't be overweight, I know, but it carries more weight than anything else that you're going to read in this book. So this really is a book about food. And, I run and founded a nonprofit called aPlantBasedDiet.org. And of course, that nonprofit, that 501c3, you can check it out, look it up online, is totally centered around food. And the reason why it is because we know that there's nothing more important that anyone can do than making the right choices when it comes to food. So let's just talk about some very, very general ideas about food in this chapter. And again, it's chapter 1. I want this to be like the number 1 chapter, the place you land on when you're starting the book, so you realize what you're getting into. You're getting into a lot of different lessons about what you need to eat. And a lot of it's going to be unlearning things that you have been taught either purposefully or just taught just by being around others. You become like the 5 people you hang around with the most. That'll be another chapter in the book, something like that. The people you choose to hang out with, your friends, all that. But they influence you. You're constantly learning, whether you realize it or not. Even if you don't think that you're a lifelong learner, you're constantly learning or being restricted, or having your mind opened or closed off depending upon who you choose to hang out with. So the food is a big thing, because the food, everyone seems to gather, right? It's like a social thing. You celebrate around the table, you eat different types of foods. But in general, since this is a very general chapter that we're going to have here, you're going to be eating plants, and not just any plants, not just plant-based, because I see all kinds of plant-based junk foods out there today. They're everywhere, it seems like. You've got to be eating more whole plants and chemical-free whole plants. The term today that's used is organic, although it doesn't necessarily always mean chemical-free. That's what I mean when I say the word organic. So it may not be the same thing, the same definition that the U.S. Department of Agriculture uses or whatever. But that's the idea. You want to eat the actual plant, the unadulterated plant, the plant that hasn't been contaminated and doused in chemicals. That's what you want to eat. And you want to eat a variety of plants. You want to eat plants that are low in fat. Because even if you stick with eating a ton of nuts, seeds, and avocados, as you'll learn during the course of my book, you may not be able to make it to 150, because that is really going to hurt you. It's okay if you have nuts, seeds, and avocados every once in a while. It's okay if you get them in their natural form and you have to open them up, cut them, take the shells off, whatever, because it takes forever to eat like that. So you won't eat that many of them. That's okay. But in general, the low-fat plants are what you want to go for, and that does not include nuts, seeds, and avocados, and there'll be a chapter on that. So the other thing is processed. You want to eat foods in its most natural state or minimally processed state. And again, we're talking chemical-free, organic, and a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Okay, if you look at, for instance, if you want to learn about what you should eat, what proportion of foods to eat relative to others, like the traditional food pyramid, just go to our nonprofit website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, go to our Facebook page too. You'll see the logo there of that nonprofit is actually a food pyramid that we designed back, I don't know, I think it was like 2016, something like that. It was like that became our logo, and that's the correct food pyramid. And if you look at the food pyramid, you'll see that there's tons of fresh water. Water should be your beverage of choice. Fresh, clean, doesn't have to be purified. It just needs to be non-contaminated, okay? Because you can find pure or clean natural springs, okay? As long as it's non-contaminated. That's the biggest thing. Because a lot of times, you know, the water you get out of your taps and things, it's just full of chemicals that they use to treat it. You know, so you're getting a whole other set of chemicals in your body when you do that. And then sometimes, like, I get a lot of, because I don't want to drink the stuff out of the sink, I don't have access to a mountain spring, I'll get distilled water that I carry in a plastic container. It's exposed to plastics, and of course it has everything removed from that water. Like some things that are beneficial even are removed. So ideally it could be a spring. I'm not saying go get spring water, because the spring water you get at the stores in bottles, and you don't know the condition of that spring. We don't really know what's going on there. But if it's more, the more you know, the better. And again, kind of going with your food, I'm telling you to eat non-chemical used, chemical doused, organic, mostly whole plants. Even if you go to the store and buy these things, you have to really be buying what you think you're buying. That's a whole other aspect. So also growing your food is a way to ensure that. And of course, if you're going to grow your food, you either got to do it indoors, and then indoors give some compromises because you're not actually using the sun to grow the plants, and the plants were originally intended to grow with the actual sun. But then if you want to go to a place where you can actually grow all the stuff on your own, then you've got to move to specific areas and around the earth. There's only specific areas where you can really do that. Like, there's a reason why, if you look at people who live way up north, the Eskimos and things like that, that they actually will eat meat because there's nothing else around. Nothing else is going to grow, if you think about it. So you have to go to a place where, like, if you didn't have air conditioning, climate control, whatever, where could you live and tolerate it and, you know, still be able to grow a variety of fruits and vegetables? These are ideal situations. Okay, these are like, if you really, really want to go for it, that's what you want to do. But anything probably is better than what you were taught growing up, I'm guessing. If so, let me know down in the comments, because I have a feeling that you weren't taught this, and that's part of, you know, again, I'll mention this since this is the first chapter in the book. That's one of the most important things that you need to take away. In addition to the food, we really need to start teaching people this at an early age, like elementary school. I was just talking with, doing a video with someone else, and we were discussing, I don't know, it just hit me during the video, like why aren't we taught this stuff growing up? I remember when I was growing up, I was born in 1970. So when I'm making this video, I'm 51 years young, making this video. And I was taught about smoking. I was probably the first generation of people that actually went to public school that were taught about how bad smoking is, about how you're going to get cancer, how you're going to get black lung. They showed us pictures. You know, you got it. You know, there was no ignoring it. I mean, yeah, you could still go off and say, oh, screw it, and, you know, to succumb to peer pressure from somebody, but you knew what you were getting into. The average person here today has no idea what they're getting into, how much harm they're causing themselves. And again, this is based on my own personal experience here, but it is a tremendous amount of harm. And this is why the average age is like half of what it should be, right? The average age of death is like 75, where I think it should be 150. And I think 150 shouldn't be suffering, because I also feel like a lot of times, and again, because of the food, mostly because of the food, people will get, you know, 30, 40 years old, and all of a sudden, all these diseases of affluence will set in. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer, metabolic syndrome, all kinds of disabling, crippling conditions where part of your life is taken away permanently and never returns. That's usually what ends up happening. All right, so that you end up having the second half of your life leading in a progressively worsening state of misery. And it's mainly because of the food, again. So when I say live to 150, I'm saying we're going to live 150 good years. And, you know, it is possible someone might get hit by a bus, and well, that's okay, but we're not expecting that to happen, because that is a freak type of a thing when that does happen. But if you eat the right foods and don't eat the wrong foods, then the expectation is you're going to live to at least 100 years old. You probably will be able to make it to 150 if you really try. And remember, if you really try, you're going to have to make sure you subscribe to this channel. Of course, like the video, give it a thumbs up so it appears in the algorithm. Comment below. Tell me how, actually, go down there below. Tell me how you're doing with food. I want to hear from you, the watcher of this video. I want to hear your own self-assessment. Type it in there. How are you doing with food based on the rough framework that I've given already in this video, because I'm not going to go into any more detail than I've already gone. That's it. The rough framework. How are you doing with food? I want to hear how long you expect to live, and I will look at these comments. And you already know me. 150. That's it for me. So I have another 99 years to go. And, you know, if I think about it, like I said, I'm 51. I feel pretty darn good. I'm not perfect, but I do realize, and one of the other motivators for this is that you have to get better as you get older, and especially with the food, because the food is the number one thing. When you make mistakes, when you eat the wrong stuff, it hits you much harder as you age. I think anybody who's getting up in years can verify that. So let me know in the comments how old you are also right now. If you feel this kind of stuff when you eat wrong, let me know. And we're here to support you too. You know, we have a group, a worldwide group. It's on Facebook, aPlantBasedDiet.org, and it says I can't remember the exact title, but it's basically advocating an organic whole plant lifestyle. It's on it's a Facebook group. We have like 5,000 people in there. Go ahead, go in there. We also have local groups, which you can find on our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, but that's the big one. We talk about this, really the eating, the diet there, which is the food, which is what we're talking about right here, right? So if you want some resources, also go to our website for food. This is because we'll talk about it all specifically. We'll have each chapter, we'll have an individual chapter devoted to individual things with food because it's so important. But if you go to our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org, there's a tab there about healthy prepared food. If you don't feel like cooking, or if you don't like cooking, if you don't have time to cook, click on that. There's only like 3 or 4 different sources that I can even be okay with telling you about, because so much, if not all the stuff out there, is just going to dramatically shorten your lifespan, and you're going to live in misery. But the 3 or 4 that you see on our website, I'm okay with those, but those are the only ones. And then also there's healthy recipes. There's a healthy recipes tab on the website. And if you love to cook, I don't really love to cook, although I would love to be able to cook all this stuff and have the time to do it and make it exactly right. That's another factor. See, like when you're growing the food, you know, right? When you decide what you're eating, you know, especially when you cook the food, you know all these things. You take anything out of the equation, because each step of the way, like especially if you go out to restaurants and they cook the food, they're going to add so much stuff in there, and there's going to be so much stuff that you shouldn't be eating. It's crazy. So if you really want to go for the highest level, you're going to have to learn to cook, probably, or not cook, just eat raw. I mean, a lot of what I do, and my wife Denise does a lot of times when we're traveling, is at least for part of the day, half the day, we'll just pick up, you know, raw organic fruits at wherever we are, the grocery store, the market, usually the grocery store. They usually have a good selection in almost any grocery store these days of organic, you know, good quality fruits. Not necessarily the same as if you grew it yourself, but it's pretty darn close. So you've got to take all these things into consideration, from buying the food, maybe growing the food, preparing the food, and like I said, eating out. Oh, unless you're going to Green Fair Organic Cafe in Herndon, Virginia, which is the healthiest restaurant in the world, unless you're going there, I cannot tell you that where you're going to go is going to get you to 150. That's how bad it is out there in the restaurant world right now. Not to say that there aren't restaurants that do have individual meals, because we work with some of them, and they will do certain special meals for us and things, but that is the exception, the extreme exception rather than the rule. Just know that. You have to understand that, because in a way, if you don't agree with what I'm saying right here, you must on some level get to the point where you realize that you have been taught something that is totally wrong, or you've been brainwashed, or some kind of combination of that. You know, you've just molded yourself to the culture, because the culture the way it is right now is just not, it's not life enhancing. It enhances a lot of things for a lot of specific people, but it doesn't enhance life for the average person, or even specific people for that matter. There aren't many people that are going to be doing all these things that you're going to be hearing about here in the V-book. But maybe it will spread. Maybe you let people know. You can tag them in the comments, depending on where you're watching this. You know, let them know what's going on, and that this resource that's free, that's no cost, that's zero waste, because you don't have to get anything printed, is available. You know, because this is just an ongoing process of us learning new stuff every day. And we're just at the point now where I'm thinking it needs to get out there, especially with the food. Because like I said, if you're just joining us now and you hadn't watched the beginning part, depending on if you're watching it live or whatever, because I always make a premiere of these videos, go back and watch the beginning, because you got to understand how every step of the way with the food, you're going to hit a roadblock. You're going to hit a stumbling block, and you've got to train yourself to be aware of what's happening and awake and conscious of what the world is throwing at you and how bad for you it really is. And when you get to that point, it'll be easier for you to make the right choices with your food. Because unless you get to that point, because like I said, like I'm telling you that most of the stuff you got at the grocery store is bad because it's not organic, right? Most of everything you get at a restaurant is bad for various reasons. Most of the food you get anywhere actually is bad for you because it's not mostly whole plants. You've got to realize, but you've also got to realize that just because you're doing things differently doesn't mean that your life's going to be boring or bad. In fact, I think it'll be the exact opposite. And in fact, I think that because of the long tail of the internet, and if you guys are familiar with that, the long tail basically is something where you can connect with people that are very, very specific. The long tail, it just goes on forever and ever gets smaller and smaller. Like what we're talking about is way on the long tail. Living to 150, I don't think anybody else is talking about this right now, but me. But maybe that'll change, and that's great if it does. But with the internet, we can all connect now, and we can share information, and we can learn from one another, and hopefully improve each other's lives. And that's ultimately the whole point of this entire V-book that I'm doing. So hopefully you guys will get all this good information out of it. You better your lives. You live to 150 years. You enjoy your life the whole time. Instead of thinking that by the time you retire, you're basically just going to be going to nonstop disease management visits for the rest of your life, which is what it seems like almost everybody does these days. And we do not want you to do that. And if you, I can promise you, I will convey everything I know from my own personal experience. That's what it is, to make sure that that doesn't happen to you if you watch all these videos. And these are going to be, I can't even tell you how many chapters we're going to have. It's going to be many, many chapters. So anyway, this is the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching. Just look forward to the next video. Maybe watch this one again, because this video about the food that you just watched is the entire basis for what you're about to undertake in every other chapter of the book. And if, like I said, if you don't get this, there is little hope for you in sticking to the hyper-specific things that I'm going to talk to you about in each chapter that relates to food going forward. So you've got to master this first. So that's what I would do. Just watch it, rewatch it, give me your feedback in the comments. And if I find that I left something out here, or I didn't give the right perspective on something, I'll make like, I don't know, chapter 1A if I need to, or at least I'll make another chapter that kind of deals with that issue that I didn't do here. But hopefully I got everything. And it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. That's what I can tell you. It's definitely worth it. So thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.